So maybe first we think about it, and again, how to see things as a rainbow in meditation and in post-meditation in everyday life. So do that for 5 minutes, and then we have question answer. See whether there's something you still have doubt about, or something that's unclear, and if you didn't get exactly, if you didn't understand what I was saying, with this rainbow example, then I'll try to clarify if I can. Okay? You see, the trick is to see the rainbow as self-existent, and then not finding it there because there's only droplets of water in reality, and then the deponenturizing the rays of light, droplet of water, and the angle with your body creates the appearance, the hallucination of a rainbow there, and mainly label rainbow. So that's the first level. But then you have to apply it to yourself. You have to apply it either to your eye, to your body, to your mind. And then apply it, to your car, or to your partner, to your child, to your dog, to your cat, to the road, to any phenomena that you familiarize. You take any phenomena that you encounter frequently in your daily life, that's your object of knowledge, the things you know. So you try to see how there you could see it as rainbow, as not there, and as deponenturizing. So try to do that and see whether you can, if you understood it. Because if you don't do that, it's just a sound generality. You heard me explaining it, or any other teacher, but unless you can do it yourself, it doesn't become a meaning generally, it doesn't become yours. So you must understand it, and then you must be able to apply it yourself. You must be able to do it. Then it becomes yours, and it becomes a tool you can actually use in your daily life. If not, then you missed it. And always on the base of understanding what's the purpose of it, you see. I do that because it removes the mental affliction. It removes the hope and fear, and it brings about peace, joy, bliss. So please try for 10 minutes to see whether you understand it, and you're able to do it yourself. So, any questions?
What is the dependent arising of the I appearing to us? The dependent arising of the I appearing to the, to our mental consciousness, or what's the dependent arising of that? As with the rainbow is the water and the sun and where the person's standing.
Okay.
Similarly to the
Okay.
I.
Okay. Yeah. So when you look for the inherent existent I, you don't find any I in the body, mind, outside, anywhere, right? So what happens is that when you think again after, so the way the I appear, it appears like an illusion, even though it appears, but it's not solid. It's not like it's there, It's, in a way, you can say it's merely labeled on the body and mind. But when you say it's merely labeled on the body and mind, there's nothing there at all, right? But the thing is that when the I, the thinker, arise, for example, you say, "Oh, I'm going to the market," right? So this I, so you say I, right? But with the understanding that there's no I. So even though you think the word I, "Oh, I'm going to do this," "Oh, yesterday I did that," so you use the word I, the thought I, but with the understanding that it doesn't refer to an I there, so that's is merely labeled on the collection on the person. Is merely labeled on the person, which is the collection of the body and mind, like that.
Could you use the 5 aggregates as more, or just body and mind?
It's same. If you make it more detailed, you speak 5 aggregates. If you make it simpler, you say just body mind. And then if let's say you're in meditative absorption, is only mind, because you don't, at that moment there's no body, right? So if you say, in meditation, and the body has disappeared, and you say I, you refer to the mind at that moment. Yeah. So the trick is, what's interesting there is that if you meditate on emptiness and you do it properly, when you come out of meditation, at the beginning, the I, you use the term I, I'm going to make a cup of tea. So the thought arises, you use the word I like you used before, but what it refers to is transparent. You use the same word as you did before, but the I is just a thought, nothing more. Whereas when you haven't meditated on emptiness, when you say I, you really mean somebody's there, So that's the distinction. At the word level, it's the same thing. It's just the way you grasp at the thought I that is different. Kind of like that. Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, that arises, you see, when you come out of meditation on emptiness, then you look how the thought I appear, and then you see whether something has changed or not. So if nothing has changed, maybe the meditation on emptiness wasn't so correct. So that's a way of checking. Because to focus on nothingness is easy. You see? To think, I meditate on emptiness, but actually we focus on nothingness. So that's the tricky thing, So if you focus on nothingness, then when the I appear again, nothing has changed. It's as concrete as before. Also, another interesting thing is that if you focus on emptiness, you see, if you are able to remove the concreteness of inherent existence, when you look at phenomena again, because they are less concrete, you see more dependent arising. So you naturally see the collection of parts they are made of, and you start intuiting cause and effect. You start seeing, but what has brought this about? You see, this is a present moment of phenomena, but it's a result of cause. Right? So your mind becomes clear and can intuit the cause that produced that, and you can intuit what's going to happen to it, right? Because it's a fact, right? What the ignorance makes, it solidify, rigidify, it makes things very concrete. And when you see things concrete, you don't see where it came from, and you don't see what it's going to become. It becomes like, real concrete, like a dam made out of concrete. It's so solid. You don't see that actually it has. You see, so for example, when you drive on a road, if you think about dependent arising, you see that actually somebody, made that road. So you can see that with your mind's eye. You start seeing, oh, at some point there was no road here, right? So how did it come about? So people made it, thought about. So you see things with your mind very quickly. The mind, the mind just becomes more awake. See dependent arising, cause and condition, right? And collection of parts, and then how the mind lives. So the mind becomes more intelligent, or more. I don't know whether the word intelligent is correct, but sees more. Clear, yeah, sees more. Curious. More curious, yes, things like that. So things that just have more meaning than usual, because the ignorance solidify, rigidify things and make them so concrete that there's no room for that to function. Whereas when you see things as, it's a flux of energy constantly changing, never stable, right? So cause and condition brought this about, but is about to change into something else because nothing is stable, right? So there's the gross impermanence, but at the same time there's a subtle impermanence constantly changing, right? So emptiness means change, means dependent, right? Means cause and condition that constantly change. Right? So if your emptiness is correct, the way you look at things is much more interesting then. You start seeing things, you look at a flower, but at one moment this comes from a seed, right? And has been watered and things. So you start seeing these things, right? And you see, it's there, but it's gonna flitter, it's gonna die. So you see that. Because in the flower, in the present, all this is there. You see, all the past of the flower is there, and all the future of the flower is there. The past is there as the cause, and the future is there as potential, right? So it's there, right? But the ignorant mind solidifies the phenomena and doesn't see it, right? So I think emptiness, that's how it leads to clairvoyance, right? Because you remove these veils that see reality as so solid, then your mind naturally sees things. So clairvoyance is nothing special. It's just your mind's veil disappear and you see things more full, more, kind of like that. Yeah.
What about ignorance? Because that's part of the dependent arising of perceiving true existence.
Mm-hmm.
Ignorance is part of the dependent arising of perceiving true existence. So would that be, in terms of trying to negate the self,
Inherent existence.
Meditation, I know body and mind.
Yes.
So but then can it help to locate ignorance, to section that out in the, as one of the factors that causes the truly existent or truly existent anything.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
We don't have a microphone. Yeah, I try to understand the question. So far, I haven't.
It's probably not easy, but I'm just wondering, with the dependent arising of, Venerable René said, the I. So we find body and mind. We go through body and mind and do the meditation as you did with the rainbow. Sorry. Where with the dependent arising of the appearance of the rainbow, or now I'm thinking about the I. So you have body and mind as the basis of the appearance of I.
also you have the water, the light, the person, I guess their mind perceiving the rainbow as the dependent arising of the appearance of the rainbow, but also you have ignorance. So that is part of the...
What's the dependent arising of the ignorance?
Or do you also try to remind, also what's producing this appearance is ignorance? Or the true, through the... Yeah, I mean, would that be part of the dependent arising, and to remind yourself of that so you can find it? Or you can try and see how that's functioning in your mind as part of the dependent arising. Is that making sense?
I'm not sure.
I think it's the hallucination that's arising from the ignorance, not the true.
I mean, the ignorance is innate, right? For us sentient beings, it has always been there, right? But so if you want to isolate what it is, it's something that it doesn't depend on anything, right? So the way the ignorance sees phenomena is that they appear to exist not dependent on parts, not dependent on cause and condition, and not depending on the mind that labels them. That's how the ignorance perceives it. But to notice that, so that if you want to isolate, what the ignorance is, how the ignorance sees things, that's how innately it sees things, right? But the problem is, as soon as you start thinking, that they depend on cause and condition and parts and the mind label, the mind knows it, but that's not how it sees it. So that's the trick, you see. Intellectually, one knows how things exist, and it might be true. If you start thinking about it, that this comes, from a baby and grow, so it's dependent, and that I have many parts, right? So that, and that you label it René, So intellectually you know it, but innately not. You see, innately, if you stop thinking about it, how I appear concretely there, without depending on these things, right? So the trick is to see the discrepancy between how things appear to you innately when you don't think, and how they really exist. You see? That's the trick, is really to see the distinction between the two in your everyday experience. In the example of the rainbow, if you don't think about it, somebody look, there's a rainbow there in the sky. Innately, there's a rainbow there. You can point your finger, right? So innately, you see things as self-exist, everything. Innately, even an animal, all beings in samsara, see innately things there. And that's the problem, right? But then when you analyze, but there's no rainbow there. It's actually only droplets of water that the sun reflects in, there's no rainbow there, and how the rainbow is mainly dependent. So then the same phenomena, you look at it, the way you perceive it is different. Something has switched in your mind, right? But the trick is, as soon as you stop analyzing, it goes back to the first mode, innately, and that's our difficulty, you see. But a yogi, you see, which has familiarized itself with that for a long time, so the leftover of that insight lasts, even when he stops analyzing, the flavor of that remains, But for us, that's the frustrating thing, you study 10, 20 years, you go to classes and you know it and you explain it yourself, but this fraction of moment you stop doing it, clink, clack, everything is solid as before. Yes. We don't have a second microphone, don't we? Emily, do we have a second microphone? Or maybe come in front and take the microphone.
I'll try to speak louder.
Okay.
How do you analyze memories of the past or recollections so that they don't look concrete?
So how do you analyze recollection, memory of past, things like that, so that they don't appear as concrete, right? So same thing, you see, they are just thoughts, right? They're just mental image, memory, right? So they are made up of parts, you know, they are made up of cause and condition that produces them, you know, and they are merely imputed by the mind, you know, they're merely imputed by the mind. This is the memory of this is the memory of that. So a thought, an emotion, You see, interestingly, the mind changes from moment to moment. There's a stream of moment of awareness. You know, the reality of the mind is that it's impermanent, changing from moment to moment. But somehow the mental image I have of my mom is still the same. You know, so the concept I have of my mom, I haven't seen her for a year, right? So my mental image of her is still the same. It hasn't changed. So I think, but actually it's not true. It constantly changes too, you know. So for example, when somebody has been a witness of a murder or an accident, you know, so they now are able to see that actually the recollection of people of their memory is so wrong, you know. It's so difficult actually to have a witness that can see the fact as they really were, you know, because each one has its own mental distortion, you know, due to various factors. So it's actually very difficult to recollect something, you know. And so for example, how to say, you have a memory of an event, a birthday, or you know, something, you know, and then after some years you meet a friend that actually took picture of that event, and it shows you the picture, oh, you were there, but your recollection of the event is completely different. You know, you thought you were wearing this and that clothes, but actually the photo proves you that you were wearing something else, you know, and so on. So the event, the memory we have of the event is distorted by the passage of time. No? So it's not stable, right? So it's our own, how to say, yeah, our own memory, you know, our own... So to understand that it's just a memory, you know, that's more or less precise, you know, it's not the reality of the event, how it really happened, you know. It's influenced by many other factors. So for me that helps to see, oh, you know, because if I think of, oh, that person in my mind, if I think, oh, that's really what has happened, you know, my memory, we think of the traumatic event or the joyful event, oh, it has really happened the way I remember it, then it's solid, you know. But actually it's just my memory, my recollection of it, but it might not be exactly how it happened, you know. And it's just a thought in a stream of moment of awareness. So there's two schools in Buddhism. One speaks of 8 consciousness, and then those imprints are stored in this mind basis of all other store consciousness. So the imprints are there, the memories are there, and they come up, right, to ripen, kind of like that. And others say, no, this memory, they decay, they die, and they're the continuity of them, you know, because there's a stream of consciousness that changes from moment to moment. So how does the imprint pass from one to the next, right? So they decay, and the continuity of that memory goes into the next moment, and the continuity of that, right? So the memory themselves, they degenerate, you know, they change, you know, so they're not static, right? So sometimes it's good to remember that, because sometimes we think our recollection are valid, and they are, you know, they are solid, and think, oh, what I remember is really what truly happened. But actually it's not true. It's kind of like the continuity, you know, the memory changes, kind of like that. Yeah.
I find that also with the dependent arising and inherent, I find that my emotions, the conflicting emotions and disturbing emotions, they come up and they obscure the reality of what is. because of my ego and my pride, and thinking that I'm always, you know, I was right.
Yeah,
And
yes.
so in my meditations, I've realized that no, you know, that's totally wrong. And I see how the impermanence really does come through, and sitting with it and understanding that with time, the awakeningness of just seeing how things unfold.
Yeah. This one thing that helps, you know, in the Theravada tradition, for example, they don't speak much about emptiness, but their approach is subtle impermanence. So impermanence almost implies emptiness. You see, if things change from moment to moment, how can they be concrete, solid? You know, so it's another approach, you know. It doesn't take into account so much the observer and the thing observed, but it's a good approach to, you see, from the extreme of seeing everything's concrete, you know, concrete solid car outside, concrete solid road, everything concrete. So if you see things as suddenly dependent arising, as constantly change, so this helps.
Yeah, the other day I found it to be a really good example of, they were having a food truck thing in our neighborhood. And so I went by myself because I couldn't get any of the neighbors to go. And so I noticed that, people were starting to come, so I wanted to have a place at the table. So I brought my own travel mug. So I put my travel mug there on this table. I went to go get my food, and I came back, and this woman and her husband were moving my travel mug away. And so the emotion comes up. How dare she do that, you know? Yeah. And so then I decided, now calm down. This is not this is her table too. So then I just, you know, moved my cup and everything, and she's, oh, we didn't see anyone here. And so then I said, well, that's why I put my mug here, so that you would see. And she said, oh, you know, and she says, well, I'm so sorry. And I said, well, that's okay. And then she said, oh, I don't have any napkins. And then I had gotten a few, so then I gave her my two, because I still had the one. And she said, thank you. And we ended up having a conversation. So I decided, you know, why stay in this anger mode? Just let it go. Yeah. And it was impermanent. It turned out to be a wonderful evening.
So I want to go back to the flower, and when I'm looking at the flower, and then I want to move into it came from a seed, and you know, and it's going to deteriorate, and the impermanence of it, and all that. So then I feel like I'm not sure where my mind's going. I'm missing the experience of the flower because I've kicked into this analysis, but I'm not able to see how over time that's going to change my visual perception of the flower. I don't know how that's going to work. And the other is being in present time with it and experiencing the flower. Even when I start to analyze it, am I losing that, or how am I? Is my thinking moving me into a future or a past? I'm not quite sure how to phrase this. But I'm getting confused. It's like I look at the flower, and then I start thinking about that it's impermanent. Am I losing the experience of the flower at that moment?
No, you're not losing the experience of the flower. You see it in a greater perspective. Instead of seeing only the present of the flower, you can infer the past and the future of the flower. The present is still there, but you add another dimension, like when you see a flower and you see its parts. So you still see the flower, but at the same time you see you have one way of seeing the flower. You see just one flower, one thing, but you can see the flower as one thing. At the same time, you can see the number of petals it has, the stamina, the things in the center and the stem, right? So you see more of the flower while still seeing the flower. It's just richer more things. Whereas it seems that the ignorance kind of isolates just one aspect and only sees that.
That helps.
No, kind of like that.
Let's talk about Donald Trump. How could we apply those ideas now? Because what happens is that sure, there's a collection of parts there and a history and a past and maybe certainly a present, but maybe a future. How do we analyze all that and make it into a rainbow?
So I think also one thing I noticed is that the journalists, they're not really fair, you know, in the sense that when they don't like somebody, they put the ugliest picture of that person, you know. So you see Trump always, they're really not fair, you know. I'm sure he's not always with the mouth open, you know. But all the picture you see of him is with the mouth open, you know. So, it's strange how the image that is conveyed to the media, they are kind of partial, you know. It's interesting how the media distort a person, his or her image, who he or she is, right? So if you read newspaper from the right, you know, the extreme right, so they present him as this kind of hero, you know, and if you read newspaper from the left, you know, is that that weird person, right? So, but who is he in reality? You know, one paints him as a good guy, one paints him as a bad guy, you know, and that person has probably a partner, children, you know, and he has friends. So that person is never really presented in the news, you know, just his views and things like that, you know. So it's quite partial, the image. You never see that he's a sentient being that want to be happy. You know, that he has parents and he's born somewhere and grew up, you know, and made his life's experience, and, you know, and from his side he wants to benefit people. He has his idea to benefit people like that, you know. So, and then he has delusion, you know, he's gonna grow old, die, and be reborn, a consequence of his deeds and thoughts and things like that. So it's quite pitiful, you know. And then you check the mind, you know, his views of anger, partiality, racism, and other, you know, negative states of mind, and then the negative speech that comes out of that, the negative action. So a lot of negative karma, so a lot of suffering still left to be purified in the best case. So it's actually, you know, kind of pitiful, right? But then also these ideas came about because some people taught them to him. You know, he's not self-made ideas. The ideas we have, each one of us, we pick up from other people, right? So maybe his parents or his environment, you know, kind of the friends he hang out with. So his ideas come from there. So it's not really his ideas, you know. They are not innate to him. He's not born with these ideas, you know. He's not innate these ideas. These ideas came from, you know, from other people, cause and condition, right? Kind of like that. So on that collection of ideas, you know, in that body, we label Trump, right? Kind of like that. But he's not really there, solidly, right? So it's a dependent rising of all these cause and condition that produce that thing. And if nobody voted for him, we wouldn't speak about him, right? So Trump has become a phenomena because all these peoples are out there that share his views, right? Have a similar outlook of America, of its future, like he has. If he would be the only one having those views, nobody would talk about it. You know, it wouldn't be anything in the news. It's because a great percentage of American people voted for him, so he becomes a phenomenon, right? So meaning is so many other people think the same way, right? And then where those ideas came from, you know? Where does this resentment, you know, so there's a whole history. It's the result of whole history of events happening in America over a generation, you know, that produced that. So it's interesting when you see dependent arising, you see cause and effect that produces a phenomenon like that. So historian, you know, people which study political history, they could elaborate that for hours and hours, you know, how the dependent arising of a phenomenon like Trump came about, right? And it could be very interesting to see, you know, how that happened and what could become of that, you know, in the positive and negative, kind of like that.
Well, of course, it's complicated too with my projections. But I was just thinking of Rinpoche saying, Osama bin Laden, so precious, you know, and so that's another way to kind of look at him.
Yes, that's then in terms of mind training. No, so that's not necessarily emptiness. You know, there can be emptiness can be one mind training, but then love, compassion, patience, you know, other purification of the mind. So many other thought training can happen on the base of a phenomena like Trump, right? So then you can see it as very precious because he teaches you patience, he teaches you, you know, this and that, you know, kind of like that. Yeah, but you see what's interesting in a phenomenon like Trump, or when you read the news or you see events in the world, is to see your reaction. So you cannot do anything about changing Trump, you know, yourself, but you are responsible of your emotion, because each time your mind is irritated at Trump, you create negative karma, right? Each time you have anger, aversion, you create negative karma, right? So and that you're responsible for that, right? So and that each time you create those negative emotions, you create an imprint that would produce an unhappy state of mind in the future. Not only that, but even the moment itself of being irritated is not a happy state of mind. You know, the aversion we have, you know, in front of a phenomenon like that is not a happy state of mind. So therefore, the consequences are not a happy state of mind. So that's where we are responsible, you know, how to transform, you know, the phenomenon. When you read the news, when you hear the news, at that very moment, you have to be aware what effect it has. So if you see it as empty, as rainbow-like, you know, so there's nothing there, you know. Trump doesn't exist by itself, right? The body is a collection of parts, and the thought, memory, habit, things like that is a collection of things he picked up here and there. It's not something solid. There's not a solid, self-existent Trump there, right? So he how to say, he didn't spontaneously arise like a lotus, you know, in your visualization. You know, it's not a spontaneously arisen thing. It's something that has many causes and conditions. So it doesn't exist independent of those causes and conditions. So it's good to remember that, no? Say, oh, there's no solid Trump there. No? And that, how to say, makes it more rainbow-like. You know, oh, there's not really there. It's not really there. You know, it's just, without all this collection of cause and condition, there's nothing there. So this helps. This helps. You know. But you see, then, how to say, the ignorant mind solidifies. You know, Trump, oh, is there. You know, there. So we don't see the whole evolution of his ideas, where it came. So if you study political science, or you read a journalist that has an elaborated understanding of the phenomena Trump, then you see, oh wow, it's much more complex than that. You know, what he stands for, how many Americans follow this idea, and how they came to think in such a way. You know, because of immigration problem, the middle class that disappears in America, you know, these more and more people becoming poor and being resentful for all these people taking job, and then the globalization, the jobs moving to China. So all these phenomena are interrelated, right? So then one starts understanding how come, you know, that a phenomena like Trump can speak to people, right? And then, so to say, oh, they are wrong is also not right, you know, because they have these feelings, they came about this feeling, they suffer, right? They have lost their job, they lost their middle class status, you know, they have no way to educate their children, there's no health care, you know, so they suffer, and they think that he has the solution, you know, by closing the border. So, oh yes, less people coming. Oh yes, we go out of the globalization problem that will give more jobs to Americans. So there's a way of thinking, if you follow his, how to say, if you look at the world from a certain standpoint, you can see how you can think like that, right? So, and of course then there's another perspective that's also valid, right? So you see, it's never easy. It's very complicated problems, and it's not an easy solution, right? So when you really think about it, you know, the more, how to say, the more you have information, the more you can see how complex it is and how interdependent, and you know, and that's and also the American political system is not a real democracy. You know, how come that only two people, you know, you have a Clinton and a Trump, all the bright American people can only produce these two things to be elected? You know, it's really sad. If you only have the choice between these two in America, you know, it's wow, you know. And then also all the lobbies behind you, they have not much power. You know, how much power actually an American politician has. You know, is all those hidden in the background, you know, all these lobbies with their money and things, you know, that control many things. So you see, all these makes things very complicated when you start analyzing. Okay. Yeah.
It seemed like there's the Tibetan tradition has all these great techniques like mind training, which you just said, and like meditating on death.
Can you be louder?
Yeah, and meditating on death, and like all these different meditations that we can do and I understand that meditating on death chips away at the like impermanence it creates, that sense, and like all that. But it seems like if the point of Buddhism is to escape suffering, and suffering comes from mistaking how things really are, then why do we use these other practices? Wouldn't it just make sense to just meditate on emptiness all the time?
Yes. But it's difficult. You see, it's not easy. So if you're a very bright guy, you know, with a lot of imprint from previous life, maybe, yeah. Some yogis, that's the only thing they do. They meditate on emptiness, right? So practice like Dzogchen, Mahamudra, you know, these yogis, they do only emptiness. But they are, you know, way ahead, you know. So for certain people, yeah, they mostly do that, you know. But for us, you know, there are other meditation that help a lot, you know. So I think there's so usually there's an aspect of mind that cleans the mind, you know, practice of purification, things like that. And then you need merit, you need cooperative condition. You see, you need good luck. Let's say, you see, you can to meditate on emptiness, you need to have a certain environment. You need to have clothes, you have to have a place to stay, you need to have freedom of time, you need leisure. So all this is a result of good karma. So you need to have a certain level of good karma to be able to meditate on emptiness. If your life is too hard, let's say if you're at the level where you don't have food, you don't have a place to stay, you worry about where you're going to be tomorrow, you don't have the freedom of mind to meditate on emptiness. Right? So you need a certain level of good condition. Right? And that's the result of merit. Right? That, and then there's another aspect which is more subtle. You see, if your mind has a blessing, if your mind gets, if you can attune your mind with the beings which followed the path before you, if you can attune your mind to the Buddhas, to the beings which have that pure mind, and their mind pervades all phenomena, so if you can put your vibration to there, so that makes that the insight coming from your mind much easier. So it's almost like you can attune your mind to a certain level within your mind where it's more subtle, where it has more clarity. So yeah, that also helps. And so the accumulation of merit is meditation like love, compassion, helping others, generosity, so forth. So that is the side of merit, So and that creates the good condition, the good environment, meeting teacher, having good friends, having enough money, having freedom, having good health, having long life, being smart in the mind, So all this helps. They are cooperative conditions that help you insight into emptiness, like that. Yeah. So it's important, But some yogis, because they have done that in previous lives, in this life they appear not to do very much of that side, They have, yeah. So it's difficult to judge. You see, our limited understanding, we see people only in this life, so we don't see what they've done already as work. That's why, in order to help really people deeply, you need clairvoyance, right? Without clairvoyance, we just see a limited condition. But yet, if you have understanding, you can infer the past life when you see people, So if you see people which are wealthy, they have practiced generosity in the past. Right? You see they have a good appearance, sign they have practiced patience and ethic. Right? So if you understand the cause and condition of the spiritual path, by seeing people you see, this person has a lot of merit. And you see, this one doesn't have much merit. Yeah, it's true. It's fact, it's cause and condition. Right? So when you see the result of this life, you can infer what a person did before. And then if a person doesn't have much merit this time, then you say, well, put more emphasis on creating merit before meditating on emptiness. To create first, improve your conditions, So that's why, this practice of offering mandala and so forth is to create more merit, And if you have obstacle, then you purify, So obstacle can be mental, but can also be physical, environmental, job, money, relationship, all these things, because they are all part of who we are, right? And they impact our meditation.
Can you go back to the example of a rainbow? I don't know if I have it correctly, why we use that example. Because is it just because it appears in a certain way, or it appears like it's solid and real, and it actually is an illusion?
Yeah.
That's why we use that example?
We use that example because we know it doesn't really exist there, right? It's not something physical, solid. So we have the intuition that it's not really there, right? Even, how to say, even somebody that doesn't know physics knows that there's no real rainbow there. You don't need, I explained it a bit due to the principle of physics, but actually even a normal person which doesn't know these things know there's no real rainbow there, because you move a little bit over, and the rainbow moves with you, it's not really fixed somewhere, and if you call your friend 2 miles away, he doesn't see the rainbow there. So I think we know intuitively that a rainbow is not a solid thing, it's not a thing there, right? So similarly, the mirage, it appears to be water there at the surface of the, but we know there's no real water there, right? Same thing, the moon reflected in the water, there appear to be a moon there, but everybody knows there's no moon in the water, yet it appears, So all these examples, what they convey to you is that things appear in a certain way, but they don't exist that way. So that's the idea, right? So the rainbow appears there, but you know that it's not there. So if you apply that, rainbow car, rainbow partner, rainbow dog, so it appears to be there, but it's not really there, So it helps, actually it helps to visualize everything as a rainbow. Rainbow, you add, because you understand it with the rainbow, so if you add the rainbow onto the people, the thing, so it deconcretize things, it's kind of like that. And then, of course, the dependent rising is different than the rainbow, but it's dependent rising, instead of thinking it's concrete and doesn't depend on anything, So I found these examples, they help in everyday life, So whichever speaks more to you, whether it's the dream, or I like the dream too, but the dream can be misunderstood. That's why I didn't use it. Because if people think, everything is a dream, it's like a dream, it's not a dream. But you can see things like as a dream, So there, it's a bit tricky if one doesn't do it properly. There's some pitfall that can happen with the mind. But so I like the rainbow in this case. Today. In a week will be different. But today I like a rainbow. I don't want to, how to say, go into another story, then it dilutes this one. I want you to, you see, the trick is with emptiness. The danger in our tradition is that when you study so many different approaches. And it's like a Swiss knife. You have all these different blades. But because you have so many, you don't know how to use any one well. Right? Whereas you go to Africa, and he just has one knife, one blade, and he makes this amazing sculpture with just one blade, And you're in Switzerland, my brother, he has all 20, 30 different things to make a statue. All these different kind of tools, different, the oval and different, how you call these? Chisel, yeah, okay. You have all these different chisel. And the result is very poor. Yet in Africa, just one knife. And it makes this amazing creation. Right? So it's the same thing with our meditation. We have all these different techniques, but we don't master any one well. So we jump from one meditation to the other, and none of them really work. Right? Whereas, some people, they just do 1 or 2 meditations, but they do them so well, they chew over it again and again and again, that they get it. They get out, just with 1 or 2 meditation. And other people, they get so many meditation, and none of them really touch the point. So that's the trick, you know. It's better to start with one or two things that you really go over and again and again and again till you really get it. And then once you get it, you familiarize again and again, and you apply it in everyday life. And like that, experience come, you know. Especially, you know, I mean, if you're a full-time scholar, a monk or nun, you know, and you have and that's your how to say, your job, you know, your full-time activity. So then you have the leisure, you know, to go into all these different traditions. But if you're busy, you know, it's better to really have one or two that you understand and do again and again and again and again, and really integrate in your daily life, you know. Then you get somewhere, you know. Otherwise, difficult, you know, little bit how to spiritual shopping here and there, all these different methods. And Tibetan Buddhism is so vast, you know, and so profound that it's easy to get lost, you know, in all these little things. And then when a problem arises, you don't know what to apply because you have too many options, and none of them really work deeply, you know. And then you get lost, then you lose faith, you know. Whereas if you do only one or two things and you do it day in, day out, all the time, when problem come, you know, you apply it, then, wow, it becomes very powerful. You know? So that's why we stick with the rainbow. Yeah. So, a question I have to you: do you understand? So I think the first point is to understand. Do you understand that problems come from mental affliction or not? Do you get that anger, you know, obsession, pride, jealousy creates problem, you know, takes away hope and fear, how it affects you in the everyday life, you know, stress and so forth, how it takes away your peace of mind. So this is important, how to say, to really understand deeply. Yeah.
I have a little bit of a question about that.
Yeah. Can you speak louder?
Sure. When I run into problems in my daily life, when I apply the it works up to a point.
Yeah.
But then I reach a point where I say, well, this, I know this is an external phenomenon, but it really is a problem. I mean, if I have a problem at work, I can say, well, I'm just projecting, I'm making it a problem by projecting onto it. But it could lead to job loss, it could lead to homelessness, which could lead to eating out of garbage cans. And at some point, that becomes a real problem. And it's not just a projection of my mind that's making it a problem. I guess that's just an indication of where I am.
No, there's a relative reality there. There's a conventional reality that is true. Right? So if you lose your job, you don't have the money, you cannot pay your rent, and you end up in the street, right? So there's a relative reality there that is true, you know. But like Shantideva said, why worry about something if you can change it? And why worry about it if you cannot change it? Right? So in a given situation, for example, with the job, you do whatever you have to do to keep the job, whatever you have to do, you know, things like that. So relatively, if you can do something about it, you just do it. You don't need to worry. Right? You just do what needs to be done. And if nothing can be done about it, to worry is no benefit at all. Right? So in both cases, worry is an extra thing that we add on to the situation. Right? So when you see emptiness of the situation, the cause and effect still function. Right? There's still a problem. If you lose a job, you end up in the street. But all the worry, the fear, that disappears. Right? Or reduce. You know, you know. I mean, it's not like, how to say, we don't have the realization of emptiness, right? We think about emptiness. You know, we apply the reason of emptiness, but actually we are solid, and, you know, and how to say, You see an arhat, he ends up in the street, there's no problem at all. His psychic is completely blissed out. He doesn't need food. He doesn't need a place to stay. You know, an arhat is completely blissed out in another dimension. He closes his eyes, he has no body. You know, this world doesn't exist, so there's no suffering for him. Right? So for him, he loses his job, no problem at all. Right? For us, problem. Right? You know, in that sense. So, you know, there's degrees, right? Yeah. Yeah. So effectively, you know, we are not at that level. You know, we don't have the direct experience, right? Because if we would have, then effectively the hope and fear completely disappear. But for us, we're still in training and we have a mental image of emptiness. It's not a direct experience yet, right? Yeah. But it's good to see the process. You see, okay, this mental affliction are the cause of the problem. So, and then the solution is to remove this mental affliction, and then to see that emptiness actually removes the mental afflictions, right? So then you have faith in the method. You know, an example I like to take. You know, your mind is a fish bowl. You say fish bowl? A bowl where you have golden fish inside. Fish bowl, you call? So your mind is a fish bowl, you know, and in your fish bowl there's one fish, you know, a golden fish swimming, right? So, but the golden fish is not always apparent because sometimes it goes to hide behind a rock. You know, so when the fish hides behind the rock, the water is clear and there's no fish there. Right? So no problem, no fish problem. Okay? The water is there. And then the fish come out from behind the rock and swims around. Right? Then it's problem with fish. Right? So the ego problem is not always there. You see, when the fish goes to hide behind the rock, we think there's no fish problem, okay? So in the mind, when there's no ego there, we don't have ego problem. But it doesn't mean we have realized that there's no ego. He's just temporarily not there. Okay? So in our everyday life, we have moments there's no ego. Right? So there's a relative peace because the ego is not there. And then a certain cause and condition arise, and whoop, the ego jumps up. Right? So, same thing in meditation. So you meditate, you know, you calm down your breath, you have no thought, no emotion there, you know, so you have peace, right? It doesn't mean you have realized emptiness. You know, it's just that the golden fish has hidden behind a rock. Right? So at that moment your mind is peaceful, there's no ego there. You're happy, you know, and you even think, oh, maybe I got somewhere, you know. But yet if somebody comes and pokes you, and woo, you know, you jump up and you realize, hey, actually I haven't realized anything. Right? So realizing emptiness is when the golden fish becomes more and more transparent. Right? And becoming an arhat is when the golden fish disappears. There's no more golden fish in the bowl. That's the realization. Right? But for us, we think we have a little understanding, but the golden fish is hidden somewhere. And he just waits the good condition, you know, to come to trouble us again. Right? So that's the tricky thing, you see, is to see the distinction between when the golden fish is completely, that you realize it's a hallucination, doesn't exist, or when it's just hidden. No? So the ego, you see, is very intelligent. He can hide, he can disappear, and think, and then you think, oh yeah, oh fine, no. I get somewhere, you know. And then a certain condition arises, and whoop, it jumps up again. You know? So it's yeah. It's yeah.
So how do we attain the realization of emptiness by doing this rainbow exercise?
Yeah.
Keep doing it, we can attain
Yes.
realization.
Yes. So the thing is, you have to apply it. So first you try to understand it in general with the rainbow, and then you apply it to phenomena where you don't have strong emotion. You try to understand it with your car, you know. Then you try to understand it with things where there's a little emotion involved. You know, your partner, your children, your dog, you know, things like that. So first you apply it with neutral object, and then with object that have little emotion. Then you try to see whether the attraction, aversion, the attachment, anger, you are able to dissolve it with your meditation on emptiness. You see, the truth is in the pudding, we say, right? So you see, to apply emptiness to the cup or to the mala, which has no emotion, you know, you don't know whether you have it correctly or not, right? You don't have any effect, right? If you get it correctly, it doesn't reduce your attachment because you don't have any attachment in the first place, right? So the truth is, when you are able to apply it to people you have problems with, you know, where you have some anger there. So if you meditate on emptiness on a person you have anger, and it reduces your anger, it means that you're doing properly, right? If you meditate on the angry person and you're as angry as before, then it shows a sign that you haven't done it properly. It doesn't work, right? Or you have attachment to a person, you have attraction, right? So if you meditate on emptiness and your attraction is as before, then it's a sign that it hasn't worked properly, right? So if you meditate on Trump and you have aversion to Trump, and your aversion is as strong as before, that means that the meditation hasn't worked. It means that your emptiness might not be the real emptiness. You know? So you see, that's a sign you have to check. And that's the beauty with Dharma, is that you can check. Right? So if your meditation works, your mental affliction, your pride, jealousy, and so forth should diminish. Right?
So step by step, start from the object that is not so emotionally attached.
Yes.
And move to the bigger one.
Yes. Yes.
Eventually, that everything.
Yes. Eventually.
Then we can declare that your realization of the direct.
Is correct. Yes. Yes. Yeah. You would be like the yogi that goes in the cemetery or in front of the cliff. You know, you have no more fear, right?
No, not there, no way.
Yeah. But it's good to know, you see, so you have to start, you see, how to say, if you meditate on emptiness and is unrelated to the phenomenon of your life, what's the point? Right? So if it doesn't reduce your attachment and your aversion, what's the point? You know, you meditate on emptiness there, and you come out and you're not able to apply it to your mental affliction, you know, to the situation that produces, then it's useless. Your emptiness just become an intellectual trip. Right? Useless. Spiritually useless. You know? Yes, you can explain how the mala is empty, you know, can be kind of, you know, you can go to a classroom and explain how the mala is merely labeled, you know, how the microphone is merely labeled, how the watch is merely labeled. But what's the point of that? Right? If it doesn't reduce the mental affliction. So you have to apply it actually to your object of desire, your object of affliction, aversion, your object of pride, jealousy. You know, that's where you have to apply it. Your hopes, your fears, you know, your fear of death, your fear of sickness, you know, that's where you have to meditate. And then if the meditation is proper, you see the effect is that your mental affliction decrease. Right? So that's a sign that it works. And then you repeat it, and the affliction become less. So that's fantastic, Then that's a tool, that is useful. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about physical pain and how emptiness relates to that, your experience of pain?
So there's two things with pain. You have the physical pain, and then you have the mental pain that you add on top, right? So I think the physical pain is cause and effect, and meditation on emptiness would not affect it very much. What would affect is the hope and fear and the distress, the mental, what the ego adds on top of the pain. Oh, I would rather not have the pain. Oh, how pitiful I am before, how healthy I was before, and now I have pain, the problem, and so all the mental stuff that is added on top of the pain, so that gets disappeared with meditation on emptiness, or what the ego adds on the physical pain, right? Then if you have stronger concentration, then while in meditative absorption, the pain can disappear. Right? So while you're in meditation, your body would disappear and the pain related to the body would disappear. Right? But that's linked more to the concentration first. You see, emptiness without concentration is not stable. Right? So it wouldn't affect the physical pain, And actually, you see, for example, people which have pain in the knees, and in certain tradition, you go beyond the pain of the knees, and you go there and you don't move. You go through the pain, right? But you end up having more and more pain, and you need a knee replacement, because it becomes so horrible, kind of like that. So there's some physical limit that one has to take care, and that needs to be taken care physically through medicine and and exercise and so forth. So meditation on emptiness at our level wouldn't dissolve the physical pain, but it would eliminate the mental stress, the mental pain that we add on the physical thing, right? And then you see the physical pain can actually be transformed into something positive, right? How to say, you can be joyous of having pain. Right? So you think, I use up all my negative karma through that pain. I will have no more negative karma to experience. When I die, I'm going straight to the Pure Land because I've purified all my negative karma. And then if you're a bodhisattva, you think, by myself experiencing that, may no other beings ever experience pain. By myself experience that, I take all the suffering of the world, and for me, they are completely free of all problem. I experience them on their behalf. So you feel very courageous, very happy, Wow, I think all the things. So there's many ways of thinking, right? That actually you don't mind the pain. You're happy, you can deal with it. Kind of like that. So like that, there's many different ways. But again, you see, you have to choose one or two methods and familiarize yourself with it and make it your own. Because if one jump from one method to another and make nothing very deep, very sticky, then nothing really works. We jump from one thing to another and nothing really works. So we have to find one or two things that really works for oneself and repeat till we really sincerely believe and sincerely it works. Then powerful. Then you're happy all the time. Yeah. Okay, so maybe we finish with a meditation. So please try to imagine what it would be like to have a peaceful mind, a blissful mind, a mind full of light that is never shaken up by any thought, any emotion. When I say not shaken up by any thought, emotion, doesn't mean there's no thought, no emotion. What is meant by that is that the thought and emotion are so transparent that they don't affect the stillness of the mind. So there are thoughts, there are emotions, but they are completely transparent, completely essenceless. The thought emotion are like the rainbow. They appear, yet they are not there. So they don't affect the stillness, the bliss, the joy, the clarity, the lucidity of your mind. So a Mahamudra yogi see all thoughts, mental image, emotion, sense of I as completely essenceless, transparent. So his mind is as still as when there are thoughts as when there's no thoughts. The mind is as blissful when there's thoughts, when there's no thoughts. The mind is as clear when there are thoughts, no thoughts. For a yogi, attachment, aversion are completely transparent, essenceless. And therefore he is free of them. The thought of I, completely essenceless. It appears, but like a rainbow, it's not really there. So the point is, at the beginning of the path, you believe 100% in your thoughts, emotion, sense of I. Then gradually you only believe 50% in their existence. And then only maybe 20%, then 10%, then 1%. Then at some point you don't believe in their real existence at all. Even though they appear, you don't believe and you're free. Till the point where they don't appear at all anymore. So Lama Zopa Rinpoche often makes this distinction. What prisoners you is not the appearance. The appearance of the thought, the emotion, the sense of I. That's not the problem. The problem is to believe that they exist the way they appear. So if we can see the sense of I, the thought, the emotion, the mental image as rainbow-like, as not really there, you can be free. So when we worry about something, there's the thought of the worry, but behind the thought of the worry, there's somebody that worries. And if you realize that somebody that worries is a rainbow, doesn't really exist there, then the worry disappears. Because the worry was produced by the worrier. If there's nobody that worries, there's no worry. The cause and condition of the problem might still be there. You still need to do what needs to be done. But there's no worry, doesn't add anything, doesn't help for the solution. And often worry agitates the mind, takes away its clarity, and you might do the wrong thing because of the stress, the worry. You lack the clarity to take the right decision because of the worry, the fear. without fear and worry, you might take a better decision. Because you see cause and effect, you see what needs to be done, what's the most likely outcome. Your mind is clear when it's not colored by fear or worry or stress. So often we think worry, stress is important. It helps us to find a solution. But actually it's not true. It's the opposite. In the absence of fear, in the absence of worry, in the absence of stress, your mind is clearer and can make a better judgment and take better decision. Why is that so? Because fear, worry, stress distorts reality, distort the situation. It doesn't see as it is. It makes the problem bigger than it is. It doesn't see cause and effect. You see the problem as concrete, solid, and blow out of proportion. So to realize that it's not a help, that's actually an obstacle to the solution, is the first step. So that's why in general we say it's good to go for a walk or to sleep over it, to let the fear, the stress, the worry disappear, so that you have a clear state of mind to take decision, to act. But for a meditator, can apply emptiness. There's no one that worries, there's no real worry, there's nothing real to worry about. There's a rainbow eye, rainbow worry, and rainbow things to worry about. And if you do it properly, you have a sign in the reduction of your worry. So you have a proof that it works if your meditation is correct, is that your worry subsides. And your mind is clear to take decision and to act. So whatever you got from this afternoon, try to solidify one idea, one thought that you got from this afternoon, and said that I will cultivate. That I will try to repeat. So it's tonight before going to bed. I try to recollect. So due to the merit of today thinking about emptiness, may our insight, our penetrative wisdom become deeper and deeper. And may we gradually free ourselves from all our mental affliction, for attraction, aversion, pride, jealousy, and so forth, so that our mind experience the peace and bliss in every situation of our life. And may we use this peace and bliss to benefit others, to be a living example, to be able to live with happiness and joy and good heart, with our partner, with our children, with our parents, with our community. May we touch the heart through our living example and the people around us. And may this positive imprint lead us to the state of liberation and full enlightenment, so that we can manifest endlessly, effortlessly, spontaneously, to benefit all living beings forever. Okay, thank you for your attention. Good evening.
On behalf of the center, I want to
I think you're very fortunate to have Emily here, you know. You don't know how precious she is. She's a good example, you know, of how to live a life meaningfully. And as you know, it's not like what I say is a final view, you know. It's really like an onion. Realizing emptiness is you peel layer after layer after layer after layer, you know. So myself, I'm also in the process of removing layer and layer and layer of, you know, ignorance. Slowly, slowly.